All right, today we are cracking open the playbook. We're looking at the advice from some of the world's most successful, self-made billionaires, and we've boiled it all down into a practical guide for startup success. So if you've ever had that dream of building something huge, well, you are in exactly the right place.
But first, let's start with a big dose of reality. 90%. That is the failure rate for new companies. Think about that. 9 out of every 10 startups just don't make it. It's a pretty brutal statistic, right? But honestly, understanding the challenge is the very first step to actually overcoming it.
You know, if you've ever been inspired by the ambition in a show like the K-drama Startup, you know that passion is real. But here's the thing. Passion by itself is not enough. So we're here to turn that inspiration into a concrete plan, a playbook, to help you join that successful 10%.
Okay, so we've organized all this advice from these titans of industry into 3 core pillars. First, the foundation, which is all about the big idea. Second, strategy, which is how you build your edge. And third, execution, which is about people and focus. This isn't just theory, okay? This is an actionable playbook for building a successful company, and we're starting right now.
First up, the foundation. You know, every single world-changing company, I don't care if it's a garage project or a global enterprise, it all begins with one thing, a powerful, foundational idea that actually matters.
So our first piece of wisdom really comes from a shared philosophy. Think about Alexis Ohanian, the co-founder of Reddit, and Sara Blakely, the founder of Spanx. You know, they both built these huge empires simply by solving a problem they personally had. Ohanian wanted a better way to find what was new and interesting online. Blakely just wanted better undergarments that literally didn't exist.
And for Ohanian, that simple idea led right here, $70 million. Now, this isn't just a number, it's the value that was created from building a massive community from scratch, one that now shapes global conversations. And that's the real context for his core advice.
And here it is, the crucial point. Your startup has to be a painkiller, not just a vitamin. Don't just go out and create something that's cool, create something that solves a genuine, nagging problem for people. And hey, if a solution already exists, your job is to make it 10 times better. Okay, next, let's turn to the mind behind not one, but 2 billion-dollar companies, Twitter and Square, the one and only Jack Dorsey.
$11.5 billion. Just take a second to let that number sink in. It represents the ability not just to have a world-changing idea, but to relentlessly evolve it over many, many years. His advice really speaks directly to how he pulled that off.
This is so brilliant because it illustrates that a great idea is just the starting line. That's it. The world moves incredibly fast, and if your company isn't constantly learning and adapting, it just risks becoming totally irrelevant. Curiosity, that's the fuel for growth.
All right, on to our second pillar. A great idea gets you in the game, but a sharp strategy, that's how you win it. This is all about building your competitive edge.
Our guide here is Jim Koch, the guy who took on the beer giants to build the Samuel Adams craft brewing empire. And his thinking is actually echoed by Howard Schultz, the man who transformed Starbucks. Both of them understood you can't just enter a crowded market. You have to completely redefine it.
$2.8 billion. For Koch, this was brewed not just from good beer, but from a relentless strategic focus in a hyper-competitive industry. It's a fortune that was built on one simple but really powerful choice.
You know, this is one of the most fundamental rules in all of business. You have to pick a lane. Are you going to be the premium, high-quality choice, or are you the affordable, value-driven option? Trying to be both often just means you end up being neither, and trust me, that is a very dangerous place to be.
Now for another angle on strategy, let's turn to Daymond John, the founder of Fubo and star investor on Shark Tank. He built his entire empire from the ground up, with a net worth of around $350 million back in 2020.
See, knowledge is your strategic weapon. You need to become an absolute expert in your field, period. And you want to know the ultimate shortcut? Find a mentor. Their experience can help you sidestep all those rookie mistakes that could literally sink your entire business.
And that brings us to our final, and maybe most crucial, pillar: execution. The best ideas, the smartest strategies, they're completely worthless if you can't actually make them happen. This is all about people and focus.
And who better to talk about building great teams than Sir Richard Branson, the mastermind behind the entire Virgin Group?
Oof, this one can be a tough pill to swallow, but it is so critical. Your early team needs to be built on a shared professional vision and skills, not on personal history. Hiring professionals who are truly aligned with your goals, that's how you build a company that can scale way beyond your personal network.
Next up, some famously blunt advice on spending from investor Mark Cuban. His philosophy on radical frugality is a cornerstone for so many founders, including the legendary Ingvar Kamprad of IKEA, who is famous for driving an old Volvo and flying economy.
The big takeaway here is that every single dollar in a startup is precious. You have to be absolutely ruthless. Ask yourself this: does this expense directly contribute to getting customers, improving the product, or making money? If the answer is no, you don't spend it. It's that simple.
Okay, now what's really interesting about this slide is you have what looks like a contradiction. Bob Parsons, the founder of GoDaddy, says, measure everything. But then Tim Ferriss warns against getting lost in metrics. So what's the deal? The synthesis is this: measure what is absolutely critical to the health and growth of your business, but never, ever let tracking data become an excuse to avoid the hard, uncomfortable work, like making that big sales call, that actually drives the business forward.
So let's recap the playbook. It all starts with a strong foundation. Solve a real-world problem and commit to constant learning. Then you build your strategy, compete on being better or cheaper, and know your industry inside and out. And finally, you have to master execution. Hire pros, be incredibly disciplined with your money, and focus only on the work that actually moves the needle. So, we've laid out the playbook from people who have reached the very, very top. The only question left is for you. As you think about your own project, your own dream, which piece of this advice will you act on first?